When Iconic Arcade announced the new Street Fighter arcade cabinet they're going to be releasing in a double XL format, it really put the wind back in my sails as far as the home arcade was concerned, because I'd really been starting to get disillusioned a little bit with the fact that we weren't getting any more XLs or any more larger scale cabinets, and things seemed to be regressing. Um, when it came to what Arcade One Up was giving us. And this isn't a video to bash them or anything, but it's really nice to see another company step up and to make a cabinet that I'm looking forward to again. And so I just wanted to show footage from all the different games that are included on the upcoming Iconic Arcade. Starting off with Street Fighter II: The World Warrior, I have a lot of nostalgia for this game. I remember the first time when I was a kid going into the arcade and everybody was gathered around this machine. This was really my introduction to fighting games, and this was the game I believe that really launched the competitive fighting game scene, and is responsible for that. You could disagree, but for me, I feel like Street Fighter II really started it all, and it's a great improvement over the original Street Fighter, which I didn't play till many years later after this. But Street Fighter II only had 8 characters originally, but we were always crowded around. We were always putting our tokens up on the machine to show that we had next, and we always were playing and trying to get better at beating each other at the game. So this was one of those games that united people uh, in a competitive spirit in the arcade. And even though I feel like this is kind of superfluous having this on the cabinet and also having Champion Edition, I'm glad they're both included. I know that they keep multiple versions of the game on here because different people like to play different versions of Street Fighter to play competitively. Now, Champion Edition was an update to Street Fighter II. It did add the ability to play as the four bosses from the original Street Fighter II, and it also added the ability to play against the same character when you were playing two-player games. Um, a lot of fun. It was a great update to the game, and it was really nice to add in those bosses to be playable, increase that roster from 8 to 10. This was definitely a game as well that got played a lot once we got this update. Street Fighter Hyper Fighting was another update to Street Fighter 2. Has a lot quicker gameplay, and there's some different color variations of the costumes. I'm not sure all of the updates that are in this game. There may be some other changes to maybe some of the graphics, maybe some of the portraits, but generally um, it's got some tweaks from Street Fighter Champion Edition, and some people prefer Hyper Fighting or Turbo. It's a lot quicker paced. Now we have Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which will probably be one of the most played Street Fighter games on this cabinet. Um, this is the only version of Super Street Fighter 2 that's on the cabinet. I wish they had Super Street Fighter 2, the new challengers on here, which added DJ, Cammy, T-Hawk, and Fei Long, because I do prefer that version of Super just because it's a little bit slower. Turbo is quicker, and it's a little more difficult. A little more Turbo is a lot more difficult if you're playing through single player and you want to just play through the arcade mode. It's a lot more difficult on Turbo. Um, in fact, I believe there's some kind of glitch with the settings, so even if you set it on easy, it's not easy. Um, I could be mistaken. I might be thinking of a different game. In any case, uh, Turbo is a great game. It's a lot of fun, but it's also very difficult. And it's one of those games that's very fast paced. I don't do very well in this game online. I'm not a pro Street Fighter player. I like the games, but I'm definitely more casual when it comes to Street Fighter. So I might play this from time to time online, but it's not really one that I'm going to excel at. Some really cool features. This added the super meter so that you could build up a super attack. This was the first Street Fighter game to have that. This also was the first game that had Akuma as a secret character. The last Street Fighter 2 game on the cabinet is Hyper Street Fighter 2, the Anniversary Edition. This first footage is from Japan when I was there a couple of years ago. That was the first time that I played Hyper Street Fighter 2, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I also had this on two different collections on my Switch. So I did get some footage also on my Switch last night. But this is a really interesting game because one of the features of this game is that you can play whatever version of the character you want to play as. So, for example, if I pick Ken, then I'm able to pick if I want to play the Street Fighter 2 version or the Champion Edition version or the Super Street Fighter 2 version, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo version. But you can pick whatever version of that character you want, and whatever differences there are of that character on that game, your character will reflect that. So I think this game is going to be very interesting to play online with other people, uh, just to see what kind of matchups you get, because you'll probably get all kinds of interesting things. The Street Fighter Alpha series is included on this cabinet, which is fantastic. It has Street Fighter Alpha, Street Fighter Alpha 2, and Street Fighter Alpha 3. Now, these games introduced a lot of new characters. They also brought back characters from the original Street Fighter and characters from Final Fight, and it's really great to see them join the Street Fighter roster. There's also a brand new art style, so you can definitely tell in this footage how different the Alpha series looks from the original games, and I love it. I love the art style they went with, and I love the new characters. We get Sakura, we get Karen, we get Guy, we get Cody joining the game from Final Fight. I really always loved that Cody joined the game in Alpha 3, but I always hated that he was in a prison outfit. Um, and I wasn't really fond of that storyline of him being put in prison after the events of Final Fight. Because to me, in Final Fight, he was the hero. I never liked that as a kid playing the Alpha series growing up. But these are great games, a lot of fun, a lot of great memories with these. There's all kinds of new combos and new techniques introduced in the game, like air blocking. There's now, instead of just one super meter, your super meter can build up to 3 levels. So they're a really great addition. They built on what came before and added new things in that are still seen in fighting games today. Even more than the Street Fighter Alpha series, the fighting game I'm most excited about on this cabinet is Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. I remember when I went to the mall and played Street Fighter 3 for the first time in the arcade there, the Tilt, and Street Fighter 3, that first time when I put my money in and I got to the character select screen, and the only characters I recognized were Ryu and Ken. I was kind of taken aback. I was really surprised they didn't put more characters from the previous games in, but I still stuck with it and played it, and I came to love the new characters. Of the new cast that was introduced throughout the Street Fighter series over the course of 3, Double Impact, and Third Strike, my favorite new characters were Elena, Makoto, Sean, and my favorite of all the Street Fighter 3 cast is Ibuki. So I really love these games, and so Third Strike being on here is fantastic. I do wish they would have put 3 and Double Impact on here as well, but if they had to pick just one Street Fighter 3 game to include, they had to put Third Strike on here. Uh, I really look forward to playing this with other people in the home arcade community when this cabinet's released. Like I said, one of my favorite fighting games, one of my favorite Street Fighter fighting games, and there's so much you can do with this game. Um, I'm not a pro by any means. I am a casual Street Fighter player, but I can hold my own sometimes. So I think this will be a lot of fun to play in the community. The first beat 'em up we're going to look at on here is Knights of the Round. This is a really fun beat 'em up based on Arthurian legend. You can play as King Arthur, you can play as Percival, you can play as Lancelot. And as you play through the game, the way your characters look changes, their armor changes, and their weapons change as you level up. I have a lot of fun playing through this game. It is a 3-player beat 'em up, and I believe on this cabinet they are going to have the option to play more than 2 players on the multiplayer games that have more than 2. So I'm really hoping that that is going to be the case, and that we'll be able to play 3-player online Knights of the Round. That'll make this special um, versus the arcade one-up versions of this game. Now, I don't have this game on an arcade one-up, but I do have some other beat 'em ups on the Street Fighter Deluxe, and I know that those games max out at 2 players online, even though you can play more in the arcade on other modes. So hopefully they will have this built so you can do 3 players online. I know it should be possible because when they did the Mortal Kombat Deluxe cabinet with Arcade One Up, when I had that one, you could play 4-player Gauntlet on it, even though it was a 2-player cabinet. So hopefully, we will be able to play 3-player Knights of the Round online. I would love to play this with some of you online who also get this cabinet. The first shoot 'em up that we're going to look at on this cabinet is 1944, the Loot Master. Now, this is a vertical co-op shooter, and it's a lot of fun. I think all the games on this cabinet are going to be fun, but I played through this entire game on this playthrough when I was recording this footage, and we had a great time with it. I think this is going to be a great game to play online with people. Now, I was playing this on the Capcom Arcade Stadium collection, which doesn't have online play as far as I know. Uh, so it'll be neat to be able to play this shoot 'em up online with other players. What would a Capcom arcade cabinet be without Final Fight? This is a classic 2-player beat 'em up, and it's been available on a lot of different home arcade machines. It's also been available on a lot of consoles throughout the years in a lot of different ways. I was playing this on the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle on my Switch, for example. And so I have several ways to play this, but I'll be playing it on this cabinet for sure because I always go back to it. I remember the first time I played this in the arcade as a kid, same place I played Street Fighter, and I wasn't. It wasn't the first beat 'em up I ever played. The first beat 'em up I played was Double Dragon, but this was definitely the first one I played that had the larger sprites, and the artwork was so nice in the game, and it really just drew me to it. I was a really big fan of Cody in this game. As I mentioned when I talked about Street Fighter Alpha 3, I didn't like how he was ended up becoming. I don't know if a criminal is the right way to put it, but I didn't like that he was in jail during Alpha 3. But this was the game that kick-started the Final Fight franchise, and for that reason, I understand why it's on the cabinet. It's definitely one that people put time into, so I hope you'll enjoy it when it's on this cabinet. The next shooter on this cabinet is Pro Gear. Now, the first time I played Pro Gear was on the Street Fighter II Deluxe cabinet from Arcade 1 Up, and it's a really good shooter. It's a horizontal 2-player co-op shooter. I had never heard of it before, and So I really enjoyed playing it. I later found out that I had this game on the Capcom Arcade Stadium as well. Now, again, the Capcom Arcade Stadium is not online play, so the only way I have to play this game online is on the Street Fighter 2 Deluxe cabinet right now. So this is another chance to upgrade in a way. So once I have this cabinet, I'll be able to play this game online on a bigger screen, on a bigger cabinet, and I hope people will play this online because it is a really, really good shooter. Definitely give it a chance if you haven't, and if you've never checked it out, and you need a way to play it, I do recommend the Capcom Arcade Stadium 1 and 2 because both of those have a lot of great classic arcade games on them and they're really worth checking out. Um, but yeah, Pro Gear, great shooter. Really looking forward to having this on the cabinet. The 14th and final advertised game on this cabinet is Giga Wing 2, and I was very excited to see that this was going to be on this cabinet. I have this game for my Dreamcast. That's the only place I have to play this game, and so I did get a device specifically so I could record this footage from my TV because I didn't have another way to hook up my Dreamcast anymore to my TV. So it gave me an excuse also to get this so I could hook up my Dreamcast through HDMI. So now I have my Dreamcast hooked up to HDMI. I can play Dreamcast games on my TV. But Giga Wing 2 is definitely one of my favorite Dreamcast games that I have. So this game was one that I purchased on a whim. I had never heard of the series before when I got this. I never played Giga Wing 1 in the arcades or 2. And so I bought this game and fell in love with it. I mistakenly have thought for years that the arcade cabinet must have been 4 players for this because there is a 4 player mode of this on the Dreamcast. But as I did some research, I saw that apparently this game was actually 2 players in the arcade. I was hoping for this cabinet, this home cabinet, that this would have the 4 player version of the game and we'd be able to play 4 players online. I'm assuming that's not going to happen now since the arcade version is actually 2 players, but I have my fingers crossed. I still have hopes that perhaps we'll get the 4 player version of Giga Wing 2 because I'm a big fan of the series, even though I believe there's just 2 games in it, 1 and 2. It's a great shoot 'em up. The interesting thing about it is that even though it is a vertical shoot 'em up, it's on a horizontal screen. So that kind of goes against the grain of how things usually go. But it doesn't bother me. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, um, I love it and hope that I get to play this with a lot of people online. I hope people will be playing this online because there's no other way I have to play it with people. Um, and I gotta say, it was really nice to fire up the Dreamcast to get this footage for you. The last game I need to talk about is Captain Commando. Now, I didn't see this listed when I was pre ordering the cabinet, but apparently this is going to be included as a bonus game for those that pre ordered. So that's a nice addition. I do have Captain Commando on the Street Fighter 2 Deluxe. I also have it on different collections on my Switch. So I'm playing it here on the Beat 'em Up bundle. And it's a fun game. It's a 4 player co-op beat 'em up. Now there's also a 3 player ROM. There's also a 2 player ROM. So you never know what they're going to actually put on a cabinet. Hopefully they put the 4 player ROM on here and we can play online with 4 players. That would definitely be the best outcome. But ultimately, we will have to see. I don't think they've actually released any details for sure about how many players are going to be able to play on some of these games that have the ability to play more than 2 players when we're playing online. Hopefully, those games will include that ability. So that's my look at each of the games on this cabinet. Now, I do have the Arcade 1-Up Street Fighter 2 Deluxe cabinet, and some of the games are repeats that are on here. So the games that are on the Street Fighter 2 Deluxe that are also on this cabinet are Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, Street Fighter II Hyper Fighting, and Super Street Fighter II Turbo when it comes to the Street Fighter games. And then we also have Final Fight, and we have Pro Gear, and Captain Commando. So those are the games that are also on the Arcade 1-Up Deluxe Street Fighter. I believe that's just 6 games total, so that means all the rest of the games are different. I have to say, I think I would have liked to have seen Iconic Arcade go for 20 or maybe even 25 total games on the cabinet. You don't want to go too heavy on the games, in my opinion, for a specific theme cabinet, because you get into so much multicade territory when you have too many games. I find it can become a real distraction trying to find something to play. Um, Not to knock multicades, I have nothing against them, but I do like having very specific cabinets like this as well. But it would have been nice to have gotten the first Giga Wing on here as well to go with Giga Wing 2, so you could have the full series. They could have put a few more beat 'em ups on here, just some other games in their library that I know Capcom has the full rights to. Would have been great to see, but I am excited about this cabinet. I'm excited to have this larger form factor. I'll definitely do a comparison side by side with the Deluxe when I get it, and it is probably going to end with being uh, me selling my Deluxe because I don't really think I'll have any kind of need for it after I get this double XL. So I've been looking forward to having some XLs. This is my foray into that, and I think it's going to change the way I look at my home arcade. I hope you've enjoyed this look at the games coming out on this iconic arcade, and if you're interested in the cabinet, I hope you get a chance to pre-order. Um, Again, I'm really excited about it. I can't wait till it releases. I can't wait to show it off and do a full review for everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.